Welcome to the very first episode of Maria Teresa's Emotional Musings. I am your host, Maria Teresa. I am a celestial shaman, a master of soul light frequencies. I am a mother, a sister, a daughter. I am a woman walking this journey of life in truth, guided by the power of love. And I'm very excited to share my journey. I believe I am here to help heal humanity one heart at a time through shamanic healing, through poetry, and through channeled light language. I would love to introduce my co host. He is a dear friend of mine, an intuitive healer, a coach, a guide. We are both galactic ambassadors, and his name is Mr. Christopher Mark. Hi.
Hey, how are you?
I am great.
Yeah, so it's the first one.
This is it. Yeah, here we go. We've been talking about this for a while and here we are doing it. So, yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, yeah, this is gonna be awesome. This is gonna be awesome. So I guess now it's like, what are you open to talking about since we're open everyone up to your world and what you do?
Okay, well, I'd like to make this a sister of my blog, Emotional Musings, that I started in 2018, where I share, my testimony of truth, of strength, of resilience, of hope. And this is going to serve as a counterpart to that. Um, when I started that, my intention was for people to be able to find something that they could relate to and feel like they were less crazy. Because I feel like we all, especially people like me, so to like full disclosure here, I am an open channel for spirit. I am an autistic woman and I live a very alternative nomadic lifestyle. And I think the things that I've been through not only can inspire people, but give them strength and hope. And so I want this to be, you know, uh, a counterpart to what I've already had out there in the world and just to share my story. I like to say that I live by my motto, triumphing over trauma. I have survived an amazing amount of trauma and abuse and addiction to drugs and alcohol my entire life, and an eating disorder. But I feel like the real story that I'd love to lean into is just what it is like to live as an open channel for spirit. People who know me well will not fully understand that, I believe, because I don't really talk about it. Um, but you're not really always talking to Maria. That's kind of the that's kind of like the woo surprise. I am channeling different spirits all the time. And most of my life, I had no idea that I was doing that. So I wanted to live my life in an altered state of consciousness, whether I was altering myself with drugs and alcohol or I was just diving in and through different dimensions. It was something that had taken me quite a long time. I am 48 years old, and it's really taken me most of my life to figure out like this vessel that I'm in and how to operate.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's, I can only speak from, being here and me and you, working together. It has been a ride. Yeah, it's been a ride because I think it's, I can only imagine for people who aren't a part of like this world of, understanding spirituality and, just being able to try to connect with you in so many ways. I'm sure it's probably like difficult or even trying to like understand like, okay, well, who am I dealing with at this point? And they just probably didn't know. I think that's the one thing people don't really look at when they look at like a person who's, going through, drugs, alcohol, struggling with things mentally. It's like they're constantly getting judged and criticized. And it's like, oh, well, this is okay. Your behavior is who you are. And the truth is, it's like it goes a lot deeper than that. We live in a world where from the outside, everyone's thinking that all of our actions has, ill intent behind it, when in reality we might be struggling with things or dealing with things that are a lot deeper than that. And so I think, you explaining like how people, how people process dealing with you, and then also knowing like, hey, you're not always talking to Maria. You're talking to, another spirit, or you're connecting to another entity. It's like now you're like, it's hard to conceptualize and really to even fathom, so I can only imagine like if you're not a part of this world, it's like it's really, really difficult,
Well,
so I was gonna
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. That's not something I really made, clear or really spoke about for all of my life because I was very aware that I was very different. I've always known that. I like to say that God set me with all of my sense settings on high, and I've had to learn to use my sensibilities and sensitivities as superpowers. But that was not something that I could openly really discuss for fear of being rejected, of being chastised, of being judged. And it wasn't something, like I said, that I was really aware of for quite a long time. It was just something that I got very used to. It's only really in these last few years that I'm aware of when I'm channeling and what I'm channeling. And just to explain it to people, like there's a difference between mediumship. Like people who are, psychic mediums are having conversations with spirit and are basically the narrator. But what I'm doing is I am allowing spirit to speak through me. I am a vessel for spirit. So I get taken over and I go away. I mean, and I guess like, why you and I wanted to do this together is for you to really help me to share what that experience is like because, you're a highly sensitive person and you're aware of things. And so, when you and I first started connecting, one of the things you said was like, wow, Maria, you have like thousands of guides.
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
do. I mean, when I start my sessions or when I'm praying, like I will call in angels, ancestors, ascended masters, Arcturian beings, gods and goddesses, elemental and directional energies, spirit guides, dragon guides, galactic warrior kin, highest and holiest of vibrational beings of light. And that is my family. Those are the beings that I have been around and who have been communicating with me my entire life. Like I see them. Like I literally live in this what would be considered like an imaginary, very vivid world. Like I see and communicate with everything as though it was here in this physical plane of being. And that is, that's how I operate. So there's a lot of things that I must observe and also I sometimes ignore in order to get a function in this reality.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's no, I remember when I first actually started seeing all of your guides, and I was just like, okay, this is real. And, I think when I first saw, I was like, okay, so this is what it's like, being you, and what it's see this world, but then also simultaneously, walk around and try to be normal, like, and try to like have like regular conversations and try to like ignore certain things that's probably coming in for you. And, for some people, they just don't like, they can't fathom that, I mean, like just to the reality of having to have or try to maintain a personal life. And then on top of that, to be that heightenedly aware of, what's going on and what message needs to be delivered and to who, and then also accepting that people aren't going to like what you have to say, like accepting that people are going to like say, oh, you know, I don't agree with that, or this doesn't feel right to me, or da 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 da. And that what you're saying is what they need. And I think secretly they also know that you're right. But I think it's also like emotionally, it's just not time for them to receive it. And so it's like having to deal with that when you're coming from a genuine place with good intentions, but having to operate that way and then being able to receive messages and then still try to have a life. It's like, It's a whole nother thing. It's a whole nother thing. Yeah.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
is a very interesting experience that I have. I mean, you and I have joked around like I process everything very, very quickly. I am like a supercomputer. And that's not something again that I was like praised for like being intelligent. But the way that I have to pick up on things and organize them and receive and then give is just very different. My processing has always been, I'm a very creative person. I've always been a writer, like that led to poetry and the things that I've created. I've written, 6 books of poetry, and I have 7 more manuscripts that I've created to share. But like, that is how I process the world. It's me just listening to my spirit guides, to my soul, channeling through my higher consciousness, who I actually, just became acquainted with because, I've gone through many spiritual awakenings, but this most recent one, the one that you have been involved in, I now, know her to be Adelia. That is her name. She is my galactic warrior self from the planet that we are from. And, it's a starseed lineage that hasn't even been discovered or spoken about yet, and that is what we are here to do. So like I'm just getting acquainted with her, and she is a big part of me. She's bold, she's direct, she is choosing herself. Like this has taken my entire life because I, have learned from a very young age because of my sensitivities and because of being neurodivergent, I realized like I had to copy in order to fit in. I had to shrink myself. I had to dim my light because I did, at times would come out and say certain things, and it was like, whoa, how do you know that? And I just realized right away that what I was saying was like not okay. And I never spoke about it. I never would talk about, oh yeah, I see colors around people's heads, and yeah, there's angels over there. And oh my gosh, like, do you know that, like, is anyone else hearing the dog talk? Like, I mean, these are things that were not like openly discussed in my family or with like, my friends. And again, like I feel that in order for me to feel normal for so long, I had to drink and do drugs. That was how I normalized all of this. And simultaneously, my intention was to turn it off. And little did I know that what it was doing was opening me to a whole bunch of other entities and beings that were incredibly dangerous and putting me in situations that were like life threatening. But I believe, my soul chose all of this, and I have been very guided and very protected along the way. So, the first thing that, you had suggested for me to do like months back, which, in subsequent episodes we will discuss more of this particular journey that I'm on. But you had asked me to like create that playlist, like, from the heart. And I talk about all of the things that I have been through because quite honestly, I, I didn't realize that it was like special in any way. It's like, well, this is what I've gone through and this is what I've had to do in order to become who I'm meant to be. Like what I don't get it. Like, yeah, I had no idea that like, all of these things were a threshold, my trauma, my addiction, me just trying to really figure out how to operate like this because from the outside looking in, people will look at my life and be like, whoa, what a shit show. I mean, really, like, quite honestly, because I have made a lot of choices that were not necessarily Maria Teresa's choices. They were my soul's mission. They were things that I was guided to do, and places that I had to go to that, quite honestly, were incredibly heartbreaking for me, like going through a divorce, like having to leave my children. I think that I've done a really good job of really accepting a lot of things and finding my peace and finding my self love and finding my joy and being this happy go lucky, optimistic person. But on the inside, this has been fucking heartbreaking. This has been fucking super, super tough. And, you are one of the people that I have like fully opened up to because you share spiritual gifts as well. And so I feel like I can be very open, honest, and vulnerable. And that is really the seed that I think was planted when you and I first met. And what has
Mhm.
really created us to come, this far along on the journey for me to be actually speaking about it on a podcast, which is really important because I am here to break stereotypes. I am here to be a champion for other people and a cheerleader and to really encourage people to share their own brand of magic, like I have, because becoming who I am was the challenge and the adventure of a lifetime and the most beautiful journey. And I wouldn't take any of it away. But let me tell you, this is not for the faint of heart. This is incredibly challenging. I have really been forced into a lot of healing, not necessarily like, yeah, like, you know, fun and ooh, healing and like, oh yeah, let's connect to these, spirits. Like, no, a lot of this is allowing and accepting and a surrender. It's a constant surrender. It's me learning to say no to the different things that used to be okay for me and now are just not.
Yeah, I think, when I think when we first connected and you were just sharing like your story, about everything you've been through and, us kind of like going back and really reevaluating and assessing like, okay, well, why did this happen? And what did that do for you? And what was the reason? And, because sometimes people look at things and look at your actions and they say, okay, well, this person like intentionally wanted to blow everything up or wanted to destroy everything or wanted to have their life be what it is. And a lot of times, like, we all know that everybody struggles with just their shadow side, their demons, the darkness within them, the darkness that gets passed on from family, from just life experiences. And so it's like you're dealing with that and then you're taking that into a relationship and then on top of that, raising children. Right. And so, a lot of times, and you're in a relationship with someone who really doesn't fully understand like what you're going through, what you're processing. And so a lot of it, you're figuring it out alone. And then through that is going to be a lot of, things that you really intentionally didn't mean to do or didn't want to do, but it was just a part of you crossing that threshold of you breaking, your consciousness to connect to, who you really are. And for some people, it's a long journey. And a lot of times people don't really look at, well, why are you doing this? Like, are you doing this on purpose? Is this on like, do you not like us? Are you trying to like intentionally hurt us? And it's like, no, it's not intentional. It's almost like somebody saying to you, hey, you're going to sit in the back, right? And I'm going to drive your life. And then you're like, the whole time you're screaming, by the way, the whole time you're screaming and you're like, but I don't want to go in this direction. We're going in this direction, but you're going to hurt
Hmm.
this person. I don't care, but this is going to happen. You'll be all right. And so you're seeing this. And so then there's moments where you tap back in and then the will is given back to you. And then you're like, okay, I have control over my life, but now I don't know I don't know how to fix this. I don't know where to begin. I don't know what to do. So what do? I start back with me, right? Cause that's the only thing you can control in this life. It's like you can't control how you make people feel or you can't control none of it. And at a certain point, you have to accept like you, and I think that's the one thing I've noticed, like with me and you working together. And it's the reason why I was telling you to do the series of videos is because, everything you've overcome and everything you've experienced to get to this point, a lot of people might look at that as like, okay, this person, they did everything they wanted. So why it shouldn't matter. But the truth is that it does. A lot of times, like, we do things in life and live life until we reach this point where we have to process the depth of our actions and the impact that it's had on the people that we've connected with and how that's has affected them and it might be still affecting them. And so, I think that is, when I look at everything the good that you've done, and despite everything that you've had to endure and process within yourself, you've overcome a lot. And, I think sometimes like we forget that it's not like when you're dealing with things on a spiritual level, a lot of it is not your choice. A lot of it, I would say about 95% of it is not your choice. And there's even that 5% that is your choice. You're saying, no, please stop. I don't want to do this.
Yes.
And the rest is like taking over. Like, and it's
Yes.
taking over. And
Yes.
so everyone, when they look at you, they're like, oh, well, you did this on purpose. You did this. It's like, no, like I would not choose like to go this route or to do this or to do this type of drug or to have this happen if I, number one, had someone who understood me. Number two, felt like I was safe to be around, right? Because sometimes like you might not mean ill to the people that you love, but when you're on this journey, there's a lot of innocent bystanders because there's people that they're looking at the human side of this journey versus the spiritual, galactic, and higher dimensional side of things. That concept is so foreign and it's so out there that it's like, I have no idea what you're referring to. And then for the people living in the human side of embracing who you are, they're trying to understand why you're moving and operating and behaving in this way. And they're trying to control it. Because in the human world, we try to control things. We try to, possess it instead of allowing it
Absolutely.
to.
Yeah, absolutely. So I feel like a lot of the things that were going on for me were me responding to different guides and also different spirits that I was inadvertently, unbeknownst to me, channeling. I've come here to break a lot of generational curses within my family. I have been, and we will go into this in future episodes more in depth, but like I have been involved in a ton of spiritual warfare. I mean, even you and I just knowing each other for these, a little over a year, we have fought a lot of demons together, that have been attacking me, and my family. And that's huge. Me being sexually abused from a very, very young age. And then that traveled with me throughout my life and having to deal with that, really, yeah, just coming into an acceptance of myself because I've had a really like my truth is that I have not liked being human here. I have not liked I have not liked Earth. Really I wanted to go home so much. I remember feeling that and thinking that and being like, why am I here? Who are these strange people? They're not very kind. Um, all of this sucks. Like this is like I'm really gonna this is I'm speaking into like the flip side of like what I have like put out there because I have embraced so much love and so much light, but there really is so much shadow within all of that. And that is really what has created my medicine. I have not enjoyed being here. I've had a really tough time. Everything is super loud and super jarring for me. I am light and sound sensitive and I am, like I said, constantly flipping between different states of consciousness and different guides, different spirits. So it's a lot. It's not something that like I can really easily talk about. It's taken me a long time to understand it. And I remember when, I met my teacher and I really took on my gifts in an empowering way and stopped looking at them like curses. And I, dropped into a session with her and I said to myself, oh, this is why I'm like this. This is why I was created this way. Okay, everything makes sense now because I just naturally see souls. I see people's energy fields. I see their chakra system. I see where there's energy that needs to be rearranged, where something is blocking something. I can feel people's pains. I know where it's coming from. Like, I mean, it goes on and on and on. Like whenever, and like this well because you and I have had so many conversations, but like when anybody talks about anything, I'm immediately brought there. I know the story, I see all the spirits involved, I know what happened, I know like it is an amazing amount of information that I'm just like Like it's very, very fast. And so I'm like, people are talking and I'm like, mm-hmm, mm-hmm, okay. Like, and I kind of, part of me wants to be like, stop. like, please stop. I don't need this. But I've had to learn how to filter it out. I've had to learn what to engage in, what not to engage in. But again, this is kind of why my journey has looked the way it has. Why I have, you just have had this outrageous life. I'm a very free spirit. I follow my heart. I go where the energy leads me. And that really is the definition of emotional musings, because energy is everything and emotions are just energy in motion. And so, me trying to figure out where I was in the soup of everybody else and their spirit guides. It's like, whoa, this is a lot. So it's taken me quite a bit of time to dissect it all and to really stand in my own power, um and learn how to operate, what to say, what not to say, when to say it. I mean, that comes down to discernment. Um but I feel like these last few years of me speaking light language has been incredibly healing for me. And now, having the intention of sharing this in group settings, and that is what my guides want me to do and what I have started doing this year, which has just been amazing, because that really is so, like, to just try to make sense for people listening. So light language is the language that is innate to your soul. It is like your soul's language. It's a mashup of all the languages my soul has spoken in all my lifetimes put together. On this planet, off this planet. I've had people remark on, just different dialects you can hear within my light language. And that is what I knew coming in here. Like when I was a child, I would chant, I would hum, I would speak in this, yeah, like gibberish sound, and my family would laugh at me. I would like bang my head against my headboard and be like moaning and chanting and literally doing this. And it was like I came in speaking this. I came in super turned on. And then I had to learn this human language. And, being in this country in America, we learn English. And so I've had to learn how to speak English. But really, for me, it is so much more natural and normal to speak light language because it's an energetic language. And what was just like so amazing was like when you and I speak light language to each other, because we understand each other in a soul way. And that's what we're doing. We're communicating to one another through our souls. And that is what makes more sense to me than, you know, uh, what most people are experiencing.
Yeah, because I think for me, like, and I remember me and you started talking, you was like, hey, so when did you like start speaking? And I was like, I always was speaking. I just was like, I just didn't have anyone to kind of like share it with, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because it
Mm-hmm.
was, you know, I think it's different when you're processing things on your own and then you finally meet someone where you can be like, okay, I can now share this. And then it just became like, over time, it just became natural, to process everything. And yeah, I think that's the beauty of it. Like what people don't know is energy is and vibration and frequency is like, there's so much that come with it. A lot of times people look at it like it's just one thing, but it's a whole nother world. The universe is, it's dimensions. And if you're not open to accepting that you don't know, because most people want to process things spiritually and then they want to condense it into logic to
Mm.
rationalize it way where it's very simplified. And a lot of times people don't realize this, but it's like when you simplify energy or vibration or frequency or the vastness of it, you're condensing the purity of energy itself because now it's like not allowing it to just be. And so I think that's the one thing, like when I look at all of the stuff that you've accomplished and done and in your journey, it's like, and then now stepping into you're doing your events and, seeing the magic that you create. It has done so much for not only you, but also for me, like just seeing you step into that, because um I know how hard this process has been, for you. And then also just, how you've just faced things head on, man. You're like, beast. It's like you don't take no breaks. Mm, You don't, you
No,
just be like,
no, I'm
oh,
24/7 on, 24/7
yeah,
on.
yeah, you're like,
And a
it's
lot of
no break.
people no, and I mean, a lot of people like try to put logic to this or try to make sense of it or like I don't understand, and it's like, dude, you're not supposed to understand. This is my journey. Go
Mm-hmm.
be like you do your own journey. Let your life like orchestrate your and let that be
Mm-hmm.
from your soul. Like again, these are things that were not necessarily like I always say this, like there was never one time in my life where I ever said, I'm gonna be a shaman. Like, no, absolutely not. I ran from all of this. I ran from these gifts and what I was picking up on, and I tried to turn it off, and I realized that that was creating a lot more hardships and friction in my life and making things much much harder. So as soon as I started to really sit with and embrace and accept who I am and learn how to share it with the world. This is what I'm here to do because there's so many more people like me. And this is why we're doing this podcast because I know that there's going to be like nuggets throughout these episodes where people will be like, I get it. Oh my gosh, I totally understand. Or yes, like that makes sense to me. And I've been there. And yeah, I mean, I am a storyteller. That is what shamans are. We are the storytellers of spirit, and that is what I am doing through my poetry. That is what I'm doing through my light language. It is creating an avenue for people to connect to their own soul and their own truth. And that is what my energy does. Like I know that I am here to be a disruptor, to be an awakener, and help people to own their own gifts because all of us are psychic to some degree. Some of us come in a lot more psychic than others, but that's okay. We're all at different levels of this thing, but we're all in this together, and that is my message. It is one of unity and of love and of embracing one's light. And in order to do that, you have to dive into darkness. And that is what I have sometimes unwillingly, but willingly sat in for many, many years. And I
Yeah.
just did it. I just kept doing it because that was how I learned more and more of my own truth and became more and more at peace with myself. So I am now at the point where it doesn't matter what any of this looks like or the judgment of like what I have or don't have because what I have gained is an unbelievable priceless wealth of peace, of love of myself, of acceptance, and of so much gratitude. And I've done that through my centeredness in God. And that is something that I will always speak about. It is incredibly, incredibly important. It is my whole reason for being. I am a messenger for God. I am a servant for God. Um, and saying that, I don't know. We kind of like this has just been, an interesting little first episode. We're kind of like going off on tangents, but I would, I would like to speak some light language. Can we speak some light language to each other, Christopher?
Yeah, yeah, sure. You want to start off? You want me to start off? How you want to do this?
I will start.
You will start. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Aria staria hosa pashiminaria soria hahate pachama yaria soria tapa ahate payane kaya sa karukata o kahapate shemeta. Yesiamani o nome aya nine aya. Riasha koto o haka, seria kukashete, meriase yaso koto o hakatata fate pete me aya tote. Yesi aya taya shokta akata fata kachete ek akata autaria matea. Yasea maya altea yoya rikata aya.
E no ko sha te ya ko shova mia tia shia na wo hana sha ko ava ma ya ho ya kya ho shie me vi ma ania sha ya ka ana shu ko ve me ino shu ko me va ma kia to sha na ya.
Etearia shofakata yamekea. Well, that was exciting. That was fun. Yeah. It's it's always it's just such a joy. Like, for people listening, like you and I know each other so well, even though we have yet to actually meet face to face.
Mm-hmm.
We know each other for lifetimes, for thousands of years, and we have uncovered so much that our souls understand. And it is just always so beautiful connecting with you and being understood and seen, and accepted. So I just want to thank you for that.
You, because I think for allowing the space to be. Sometimes like, especially being in this world, you have to reconfigure and bend and, in so many different shapes and directions and ways for so many people. So I think it's good to be able to express, the dimensions of who you are without it being, shut down or judged or criticized or controlled. Because whenever people are afraid of things, it's always one of those reasons or those ways of operating. And so, yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
No, you're welcome. I mean, you and I are deep feelers. That is my greatest sense is being able to feel into things within myself and within other people. And that is really the essence of healing. What I have been able to heal within myself is what I will be able to help other people walk through within their own journeys. And so to kind of wrap up, I would like to share a poem that I have channeled from early last year. This is part of my collection called My Soul's Stories. And this is a call to the brave. When your heart is open, your eyes can see. Walls fall down, for we are now free. Accelerated ascension, spirit guided travels. Fear of one another ends as the illusion unravels. Let go of what was and embrace what is. What we were taught to believe was never real. The truth is inside, to be heard through our connected hearts. Angelic consciousness is the body's crystalline art. A call to the brave. Reveal your authentic self. Let love be the compass that navigates the waves. When times get tough, the heart holds the answers. Compassion is the superpower, dissolving hate as it cancels. Sing your song, dance in celebration. Joyful souls rise together in unified exhilaration. Shine your light and be proud. Courage is the permission slip, the freedom to live your life out loud.
Yeah, I think I remember you read that poem to me before. Yeah, you give so much inspiration um, in your words, and it reveals like truth to just be who you are, because I always tell people this. It's like, your legacy and everything you leave behind, there has to be truth in it. It has to be authenticity in it. It has to be, just pure honesty. And, because when you're not here, it's like, that's all you have. That's all people are going to remember you for. And so it's like, step into your light, step into who you are, That's why I love your, enlighten in shadow. It There's so
Yes,
much truth in that. So much
right.
truth in that.
That is always my sign off in light and in shadow, always with love, because that is what we are doing. We are dancing between light and shadow. And my intention is to always do that with love. And if love is at the core of everything you are doing, then you're okay.
I
And I
think
and
people
I
don't
and I say all of this. I say all of this because I really get emotional. I say all of this because what I am doing is leaving that for my boys. My boys have been through a lot with me as their mother. There's a lot of things that were beyond my human control, but I want them to know that everything I have done, everything I've created is for them so they can be who they are. Yeah.
think that yeah, I think what people don't know about love is that there is a darkness to it and a light to it. It goes hand in hand, and so you have to embrace both sides of it. Fully love, and I think that it's I know me and you, we talk about this, and I know that like a lot of times, like I'll let you know that you're a good mother, and I know that like sometimes people might say, well, even you say it to me, be like, no, 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 but I say it because of the intent, of the intention now, of the person you are now. Because here's the thing, it's like if you become a better version of yourself, that version always existed. It just had to swim through the uncertainty of life, had to swim through the trauma and everything that has been passed down to you, everything you had to endure, the parts that was out of your control. It's like, at a certain point, you have to understand that there's a side of every person's action that is them trying to understand life. Even when being a parent, they're still understanding life. And so I think that, everything that you're leaving them is so important because it's empowering. It's truly empowering.
Well, thank you. I know it's really deep. I know that there's been times where my oldest has said to me, Mom, I don't understand this. And I'm like, that's okay. I'm just planting seeds. And someday you'll get it. And I trust that he will because they are both very special young men and they are both gifted. And, we're here on this journey together. And I believe it's to change the world. We came here for a reason. That's why I am different. I am not meant to fit in. I am not meant to to copy. I am very unique. I am a leader. And what I am leading is a revolution of love. So we can change this world.
I think it's okay sometimes, like just uh talking about your son, like when you say you didn't understand, like sometimes you don't because it's not time, because it takes time for you to understand the knowing,
Hmm.
right? And accept, you know,
Yeah. No, I'm laughing because I always say you can't unknow the knowing. And once you know the knowing, then you know it forever. But that is what this journey is all about, is about unraveling the myths and the illusion of this physical human world with the truth of spirit and the knowing. And when, like, again, like you can't unsee it, you can't unknow it. And you and I are so blessed to be able to live this life and be so connected and be these truth sayers, these mystics, these sages, these empaths, these healers, these light workers. That is who we are. And it is for a reason because we need to counterbalance all of the nonsense and the lies and the illusion that is created here. That is what we are doing. So it's looked really crazy, but you know what? I wouldn't change any of it for anything because it's made me who I am. And I'm really okay with me today. And I really love me.
I mean, the thing is that you have to, because it's like when it's all said and done, we're here experiencing life in different, facets and emotions and, fragments. We're experiencing life. And in that experience, we learn who we are and we evolve back to who we were always were. And so it's like, I think that now it's like you're who you've always been. It's just, people are finally going to be able to see it. So, and the fact that you just did your first episode of your podcast is crazy.
Yes, yes, because I am so much, and I've always written about this on my blog. We are more than the labels that we are given. I have been through the mental health system and was diagnosed with everything in the DSM. What it all boils down to is complex PTSD. I have experienced dissociation and dissociative episodes that were debilitating throughout most of my life. That was me channeling spirits, quite honestly, and being overwhelmed. I am more than any of those labels. I am more than a recovering alcoholic. I am more than a survivor of sexual abuse. I am more than a girl who struggles with an eating disorder her whole life. Like, I am more than an autistic woman, something I didn't know for most of my life and only learned in the last 8 years, that I'm autistic. And of course, like I'd be put into that box because I am so different and I process things differently. And I think that the more people can own their unique qualities and share them is when we discover many, much, much more of our similarities and really what we are all doing here together.
Yeah, because we're here to, we're here to reflect back to each other who we truly are. And I think a lot of times, like, there is a ton of labels that people will give you. Most people use the word crazy or use this or that and third, and just like, but when you start to understand things on a spiritual level, you really understand like how who you are is so much more than a label. You can't be defined. It's like,
Mm-mm.
for me, somebody ever say, okay, well, what do you do? Or do you do this? You do that? It's like, I leave that up to people because I know if I was like, I can make a laundry list of all the things that I'm able to do, but I've also learned that I'm not here for me. I'm here to reflect whatever you need me to become. And so I look at it like that. It's like, once you kind of see that why you're here and what you're here to do, you don't worry about the titles anymore. You just step into the role of what you need to become for that person to evolve. And that
Yes.
that's just the role of a guide. That's just a role of a healer. A lot of times people don't want to do that, but it is what it is.
Well, one of the best things that you had me repeat to you was that I am everything and I am nothing. And that really is 100% that sums up my role as an open channel. That I have been everything, I am everything, and then I'm nothing all at the same time.
I think a lot of times people look at it as like, well, what do you mean by nothing? It's like, well, nothing is like, it's silence. It is the ability to listen. It's the ability to allow people to be heard. It's the ability to reflect. It's the ability of actually being still, Not everybody's able to do that. And that takes being able to sit with yourself. That's a very uncomfortable, but it can happen.
Well, that is what I have learned in these last 6 months, and we will dive more into that in the next episode. So I just want to say thanks for listening. Please continue to tune in and learn more about my truth. And I just want to thank you for being here with me, Christopher. And I will say, in light and in shadow, always with love. Namaste.
Yes.